For years, the truth stayed hidden, the victims forgotten, the cases left cold, until science revealed what time could not. This is Decades in the Dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. Tonight, we're not starting on a lonely highway or an empty field. We're starting in a warm house on a quiet street, a home full of food, music, and family, a place where nothing bad is supposed to happen. It was Thanksgiving. The table was set. The kids were in pajamas. The adults were tired and full and grateful. And sitting among them was the man who was about to destroy everything. This is the story of a Thanksgiving that turned into a massacre, and the quiet son who finally did what his family had always feared. Thanksgiving in Jupiter, Florida, 2009. Jim and Muriel Sitton's house was exactly what you picture for the holiday. A long table covered in dishes, the TV murmuring in the background, kids darting in and out of the room, relatives talking over each other. It was their tradition to host a big family gathering, and this year was no different. About 16 people in all. Parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and children. At the center of that joy was their 6-year-old daughter, Makayla Joy. She was the kind of child who lit up a room just by existing. She loved to sing, dance, talk to anyone. That night she played piano, sang hymns, and made everyone laugh. It was one of those evenings you remember as perfect, until something knocks it off balance. And that something was a man named Paul Michael Merhige. Paul was 35. He was part of the extended family, the son of Michael and Carol Merhige. He'd grown up around these same relatives, sat at this same table many times before, but everyone knew there was something different about him. For years, Paul had struggled, bouts of severe depression, explosive anger, violent outbursts. Police had been called to the family home multiple times. He'd talked about killing himself, and far more chillingly, he'd sometimes talked about killing others. Relatives were wary around him. Some actively feared him. In fact, there had been talk in the past of not inviting him to family gatherings. One relative reportedly said they wouldn't host Thanksgiving again if Paul was going to be there. But this year he came, and on the surface he seemed fine. He arrived, greeted people, sat down, and joined the holiday like everyone else. They ate, they sang songs, he joked, he posed for pictures. Several witnesses later said there was nothing obviously off about him that night. If anything, he seemed calmer than usual, quiet, reserved. As the evening wound down, family members did what families do. Some left early. Some stayed to chat. Others began to get sleepy and drift toward bed. Little Makayla was eventually tucked into her small upstairs room. She wore her pajamas, surrounded by her toys and stuffed animals. Her parents said goodnight, thinking about how grateful they were. In the living room, the adults were relaxed, probably exhausted, full of turkey and dessert, the kind of gentle sleepiness that only comes after a long, cozy day. And then, Paul stood up. He said he was going out to his car. No one stopped him. No one thought much of it. They didn't know he was going to get a gun. What happened next lasted only minutes, but it would echo for the rest of their lives. Paul walked back into the house carrying a handgun. He wasn't shouting. He didn't warn anyone. There was no dramatic speech. Instead, he walked calmly into the room where his family sat. The same people who had fed him, prayed for him, and forgiven him. And then he started firing. He shot his sister Carla and her twin sister Lisa, who was pregnant. He shot his aunt, Raymond Joseph, an older woman who had opened her home and heart to him for years. Panic exploded in the house. People screamed. Some dropped to the floor. Others ran. He turned and shot Patrick Knight, Lisa's husband, in the stomach. Patrick would later spend months in a medically induced coma, hovering between life and death. But Paul wasn't finished. He went upstairs. He walked to the small bedroom where 6-year-old Makayla had just been tucked in. Her father, Jim, realized what was happening and raced outside, trying to break her window from the yard. But the glass was hurricane strength. He bounced off it, powerless, as he heard his daughter gasp, and then gunshots. Paul shot Makayla in her bed. A Thanksgiving that had been about family, food, and gratitude became a slaughter. After the gunfire stopped, Paul walked out of the house, got into his car, and drove away into the night. By the time police arrived, the scene inside was almost too horrific to process. 4 people were dead. His aunt, Raymond Joseph, 76. His sister, Carla Merhige, 33. His pregnant sister, Lisa Knight, 33. And his little cousin, Makayla Joy Sitton, 6. Lisa's unborn child, Makayla's tiny cousin, died with her. Patrick Knight was critically injured. Others were traumatized, but physically survived by hiding, running, or sheer luck. Within hours, the story was on the news. The phrase Thanksgiving Massacre began appearing in headlines. and the man responsible for it had vanished. At first, investigators thought they might find him quickly. He'd just killed 4 family members. He couldn't go far. They issued an alert. His car, a blue 4-door Toyota Camry, license plate, photo, description. Then they learned something else. Paul hadn't just snapped suddenly. In the days leading up to Thanksgiving, he had bought at least 1 gun and, according to some family members, spoken ominously about wanting to kill everyone and then kill myself. This wasn't a random explosion. It was a massacre that he had thought about, and now he was on the run. Days turned into weeks. The police extended the search from Jupiter to the rest of Florida, and then beyond. He was added to national wanted lists. A reward was offered. His face was everywhere. Still, no sign. Where do you go after you've murdered your own family at Thanksgiving dinner? Paul headed to the Florida Keys. He checked into the Edgewater Lodge on Long Key, an oceanside motel with a relaxed vacation vibe. Sunsets over the water, palm trees, the kind of place people go to forget real life. He used a fake name, he kept a low profile, and for a while, it worked. He spent time in his room, occasionally venturing out. The owner saw him like any other guest. Polite, quiet, forgettable. But back on the mainland, the story of the Thanksgiving shootings had spread. It wasn't just a local case anymore. It was national. And that's when a long-running TV show entered the picture and turned everything. America's Most Wanted. The case was featured on the show, with Paul's photo and details broadcast to millions of people. In the Keys, the owners of the Edgewater Lodge were watching TV. A preview for the upcoming episode flashed across the screen, and for just a few seconds they saw a face. Their guest. The quiet man staying in one of their rooms. It was him. They double-checked online to be sure. Same eyes, same jawline, same expression. They called authorities and said, "We're a 10 out of 10 certain. You need to come now." Law enforcement swarmed the lodge. Paul was arrested without incident. No gunfight, no final showdown. Just a quiet, anticlimactic end to a brutal act of violence. A 5-week manhunt ended in seconds because someone recognized his face on TV. Back in Jupiter, the surviving family members were living in a nightmare that didn't end with his arrest. They'd lost sisters, an aunt, a child, an unborn baby. They'd been forced to relive the horror over and over in interviews, in statements, in court hearings. Makayla's father, Jim, remained a powerful voice, speaking about his daughter's life, not just her death. He described her bright personality, her love of music, her joy. He wanted the world to know who she was, not just how she died. But there was another question hanging over all of this. Could it have been prevented? Paul's history wasn't a secret. He'd been violent before. He'd made threats. He'd been hospitalized. Some relatives had warned of exactly this kind of danger. There were even reports that someone had once said, half joking and half terrified, "I hope he doesn't come and kill us all tonight." On Thanksgiving 2009, he did exactly that. Lawsuits were later filed against Paul's parents, accusing them of knowing he was dangerous and still bringing him into that home. Ultimately, a court ruled they couldn't be held legally responsible for their adult son's actions. It didn't bring anyone back. It didn't answer the why, but it did force a painful conversation about mental illness, family violence, and the illusion of safety at holiday gatherings. In 2011, nearly 2 years after the shootings, Paul Michael Merhige appeared in court. Prosecutors were prepared to seek the death penalty. But before the case went to trial, Paul changed his plea. He pleaded guilty to multiple counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder. In exchange, he avoided a death sentence and received 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The judge told him plainly, "You will never see the light of day. He will spend the rest of his life in a prison cell. No more Thanksgiving dinners, no more family gatherings, no more new beginnings. Just the echo of what he did and the lives he ended." For the survivors, justice is complicated. On one hand, he's locked away forever. He can't hurt anyone else. He can't show up at another holiday dinner and ruin another family. On the other hand, no sentence can reverse what he did in those minutes inside that house. A little girl who sang at the piano before bed. A pregnant woman who never got to hold her child. Aunt Raymond, who had spent decades caring for this family. Carla, who had grown up alongside him. All gone, because one man decided that his anger, his resentment, his illness, justified pulling a trigger. This case is not a cold case. It doesn't hinge on DNA or a new forensic breakthrough. The science here isn't about solving the crime. It's about understanding how we track, find, and capture people who try to disappear. It was cameras, TV broadcasts, and pattern recognition. It was a motel owner, a few seconds of footage, and the instant click of recognition that changed everything. Sometimes technology catches a killer. Sometimes it's a database hit, a genealogy tree, a fingerprint, and sometimes it's just someone paying attention, a face on a screen, a memory, a phone call that says, "I'm a 10 out of 10 sure, you need to come now." Thanksgiving is supposed to be about gratitude, family, comfort, home. The Sittons and the rest of this family will never have a normal Thanksgiving again. But every year, as the holiday rolls around, people remember this case. And especially a small girl named Makayla Joy. They remember her singing, her laughter, the way she danced around the room in pajamas on the last night of her life. And they remember that evil doesn't always come from outside the house. Sometimes it's already sitting at the table. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more stories where justice never expires.